The Flames. History's greatest secret and key to a future where ships travel lifetimes to bring flames to new worlds. Those who dare to walk the fire can cross between the stars with a step if you can find a ferryman and pay your way across. For most who brave the flame alone are lost forever. May the ferryman take you.
Remember Your Fangs by Edward W. Robertson.
Narration by FlashPulp.com's own Opopanax.
There are worlds you don't want to visit. Sights you don't want to see. Good for you. You're not one of my clients. The walk from a planet to a ship is always disorienting. A planet has winds, storms, the call of creatures who've never been leashed. On a ship, if there's a breeze, it's from the scrubbers. Lonely footsteps echo down plastic tunnels. Everything is under control. I met Malloy on the Nirvana, a way station that was nothing more than a series of hallways looping around the flame. The ship looped through space, too, carving a semi-random path through an irrelevant chunk of vacuum. It had no destination. In a practical sense, it had no reason to exist. In fact, it added an unnecessary leg to the journey. That was the point. The Nirvana was a place in between, a neither nor, and that was how it was meant to be experienced. Physically, emotionally, spiritually. I suppose it was also meant to protect the guilty. Malloy waited in a carpeted room overlooking the ocean of stars. As per protocol, the other ferrymen had already left. In the fashion of the time, Malloy's eyes and mouth were too large, a largeness his smile only magnified. He gave me a once-over. His gaze was automatic. "You must be Porter." I nodded. My name was no more real than his. For all I knew, his face was fake, too. "Don't be afraid. Stick with me. Don't get ahead." He waved his hand. "How about we skip the stuff I know and get to where I want to be?" "As you like it." "That's what they promise." He smiled. I turned. He strode beside me, footsteps rebounding down the empty halls. "Still, I'm trying not to believe it until I see it. What if it's less?" "I suppose you'll go home." "You're pretty ho-hum. Should I be worried?" Stars burned on the screen to my left. "Only if your imagination is very, very good." The tunnel fed into Nirvana's center, a vast round room made vaster yet by a high ceiling painted with a view of the stars above. Depending on your mood, the effect could be heavenly or ghastly. Water splashed from the raised fountain at its center. The flame burned within it, an unearthly green-blue. This was a simple trick. They fed it copper. I walked into the fountain's waters. This was touted as ritualistic, purifying. I suspected this explanation had been grafted onto the original purpose, to prevent rich men from burning themselves while crossing. The flame warmed my skin. The world became a shadow of itself. I glanced back to make sure Malloy was still with me. Sometimes I take them on trips, showing them lights, letting them bask in the songs. He was in a hurry, though. I led him straight through. The lights blinked away. I emerged into a rich brick hearth. Steam roiled from my still damp clothes. Malloy stepped past me, grinning at the receiving room, his passage already forgotten. Perhaps he couldn't be blamed. The room was windowless, but as lush as the world beyond. Downy carpets of exotic fur. Murals of ancient men sailing gleefully into the unknown. Marble chairs with velvet padding. Every door out was locked, but no one ever tried to walk out on their own. Regulars knew better, and wanderers were too intimidated to try. Jackson emerged after giving Malloy just enough time to look around. He didn't look like a devil. He looked like a butler. He had allowed his hair to gray, and he stood with the first knuckles of his fingers tucked into his pockets. "Miss Porter," his smile was as faint as his cologne, "will you have a word with me once I've seen to Mr. Malloy?" "Is it important?" I said. "I'm afraid so. Kina will show you to my office." Kina appeared as quickly as if Jackson had produced her from his pocket. With a murmur, she led me down a soothingly beige hallway to a soothingly beige office, with sparse furniture and a rich view of the crushing jungle down the hill. Kina left me there to watch the fronds sway in the breeze. Jackson didn't keep me waiting long. "How's Malloy?" I said. "Very well. Yes, very well." He seated himself, smoothing his shirt. "I think he liked you. Would you care to join him in a hunt? Something more private? I'm fine. How do you know that unless you try it?" "Some things you don't have to know." I gestured at the office. "Why are we here?" Fine smile lines crinkled around Jackson's eyes. "I imagine you are far better suited to answer that than I. Unless you mean, why are we here in this room? Simple. We require a delivery." "Of?" "Does it matter?" "To the person doing the delivering? Very much." His eyelids flickered. "New product." I shook my head. "Clients are one thing. Your creatures are another." "Porter, you know where this is headed." "I would like to give you the chance to surprise me." "Sadly, I am a very predictable man. That is why I have been granted the responsibility of management. That is why I will now explain that you will transport our product, or the church will learn that you are responsible for the establishment of this facility." My veins tingled, hot and itchy. I'd known this was coming. It was a debt that couldn't be cleared, a malfeasant snake swallowing its own wretched tail. When Jackson first approached me, I hadn't known exactly what I was helping to get off the ground, but I hadn't asked either. The church wouldn't care about my willful ignorance. I didn't know what they'd do if they found out. Nothing. Suspension. Exile me to a world without ships or flames. Death? It had been rumored. People had disappeared. Even Ferryman. The untouchables touched, rubbed out by the church's vicious finger. Not that the church would admit to the existence of any such enforcement agency. I suspected the higher-ups weren't even properly aware of it. Certainly not the extent of its powers. Its reach. Starlight takes 100,000 years to cross the Milky Way. When so few of us can travel faster, how can you trust any news from beyond your own backyard? And I was one more piece of dust. "What do you need?" I said. Jackson smiled. "There's a good girl. Mark your calendar. 2 weeks." He let me leave on my own. I took the scenic route, perhaps to punish myself. Windows overlooked the bristling jungle. Now and then the report of a ballistic gunshot crackled in the distance. I found myself back in the interior hallways, the beige guts the clients never saw. Wheels squeaked. An orderly in scrubs pulled a flatbed cart behind him. On it, a creature lay heavily. Lion basic, no mane, but the tufted tail, the sheer feline shape and size. But its eyes were human, and too large by half, purple irises glowing from its sunken face. Its hips swelled under its dun fur. The lion met my gaze and smiled sickly. Its gums were toothless, not from old age, designed that way. Instead of a carnivore's stench, floral perfume wafted from its matted hair. Plastic straps bound it to the cart, but cuts marred its fur in angry red valleys. Its head quivered. It dropped its chin to its paws, one of which was missing half its digits. I headed straight for the flame. I spent a week away from everything. One of my places. Even Jackson couldn't reach me. When I returned, his messages were coldly furious. I met a party of clients in their nirvana, ignoring their questions, and took them to the facility. Jackson directed me to the labs to talk logistics. These rooms were windowless, white and chrome. Cages lined one wall. I smelled perfume. The purple-eyed lion grinned hatefully from his cage. I frowned. I had expected it to be incinerated. The doors slid open without a sound. Jackson saluted. "We're going to try something new this time. You'll be dealing with significantly more mass. Not a problem, I assume." "Why?" I said. "More coolant?" He jerked his head to the side. "No need. No embryos." "You want me to carry live subjects?" "We've been suffering unusually high failure rates. Defects. We're not certain if that's the result of passing unborn subjects through the flame or a flaw in our initial combination process. But before we do a lot of tedious and expensive lab work, it seems wise to rule out this variable." I pressed my fists against my mouth. "You realize live subjects raises my risk. How am I supposed to corral dozens of squalling puppies?" Jackson rolled his eyes at the spotless ceiling. "Oh, for pity's sake. You won't be dragging them behind you on leashes. Here, I'll fetch one of the containers." He spun on his heel. The door sighed and slid open. I was left alone amidst the faint hum of electronics and the bladed scent of sterility. "You're the walker," a voice croaked. I startled. The lab was empty. Had someone spoken through a hidden speaker? The lion stirred, muscles uncoiling, and slumped to the front of its cage. Did you just talk?" I said. Its whiskers twitched. It coughed. It was laughing. Toothless, it lisped. "Don't tell me you didn't know." "Why should they want you to talk?" It gave me its sickly grin. "So we can scream." "I don't think we should be having this conversation." "Do you know what they do to us?" I shook my head. "They hunt you?" The creature laughed again, showing its pale gums. "Do you think they take out our teeth to protect them in the field?" I gaped. The door slid open, disgorging Jackson, who held a 1-foot plastic cube aloft in one hand. His smile inverted. "Is something wrong?" I shook my head. The lion lowered its head to its paws. Jackson glared at it, then extended the cube to me. "You see? Weighs nothing at all. If we have to, we can pack 3 or 4 per box. They'll only be cooped up for a few minutes. Very humane." The clients were still unwinding in the reception hall, drinks in hand. One of them finished a joke. They all laughed. White teeth flashing in the firelight. "I know the official policy," I said, my nostrils clogged with the piney scent roiling off the plantation below the balcony. "I want to know what's off the record." Wheeler shrugged. "Varies by church, but they all have a pale beyond which they get righteous." He gazed over the vast fields of pot baking in the sunlight. I didn't even know what planet he grew on. Wheeler owned, oversaw, and delivered it all himself. Vertical integration. Smart. Much smarter than me. "Are you in trouble?" "If I were, what would it matter?" I said. "I have 100 places they can't find me." "Do you really believe that?" The ice clinked in my glass. "Well, someone would have to be pretty mad." "Oh, you're totally in the clear then. Unless it involves money, sex, betrayal, jealousy, or power." "All you need to run is fuel. There's no better fuel than fear of death." "Here's what they do when they can no longer abide you," Wheeler said. "They set a probe at every flame on every planet, ship, and rock with a population of 2. And when you trip the probe, they erase you." "What if you never trip the probe? What if you just disappear?" He raised his eyebrows. Then haven't you done their job for them? I swirled my glass. I thought users were supposed to be more fun. We are, Stu, he grinned. One day you'll let me prove it. Ha, I said. But I couldn't convince myself. Next time I took a client to the facility, I asked Jackson for a personal tour. He smiled archly and dispatched Kina to show me around. I saw the soundproof suites with their beds, colossal, sturdy, capable of sleeping an elephant. She brought me to the garage where I piled into a rover next to the guide, a tanned man with a broad hat and khakis, a man out of a safari fantasy. He drove me through the humid trails. The engine was silent. Beneath the canopy shadows, great beasts fled through the shrub, crashing through the branches, heedless. Once, I glimpsed a monstrous lizard, its head hidden between fronds. My guide whistled. The creature's head swung low, leaves drooping from its molars. Its human eyes went wide. The guide laughed. I took the flame to one of my places. The air was thin and dry and soothing. The sky was clear and green. The lake's red waters reflected the snow-capped peaks that blocked this place off from the world. A cabin rested by the shore. There were many places like this, but this place was mine. I had let myself be penned. Let myself forget I could bite back. That, if anything, is why I decided to do what I did. There's too much space out there for cages. The day came. I met Jackson at the facility, and he tapped me over the files for the pickup. "We rigged a backpack for you," he said. "Just let them know if it's too heavy. You can make 2 trips. How gracious. "You are paid, you know. Very well. You could at least pretend to be a professional." I rose. Professionals don't make a business practice of blackmail. Jackson honked with laughter. "You should get out more." "I'm sorry," I made myself say. "I'll be back in a jiff." I left him for the flame. Inside, colors swirled across the tunnels. The sirens sang strongly. I let myself listen. I arrived in their research house on a gas giant moon called Veer. The room was cylindrical, ventilated. I scanned through the lock and headed to another sterile room that smelled of bleach and dander. 4 men waited. 2 were techies. The other 2 wore absurdly bulky backpacks. Animals mewled, muffled by the plastic boxes. "Who are you?" I said. "We're going with." One of the men jerked his thumb at his pack. "Save you all the trips." Jackson never said anything about 5th wheels. He'd had his teeth sharpened to points. "Look, we just do what we're told." I fought to think. My plan hinged on solitude. "I don't know if I can be responsible for you. Not while I'm wearing one of those packs." "So we carry you lead," the other man said. "No worries." I bared my teeth. "Dry run." "Eh?" "I need to learn how you 2 handle before we take the product through. First trip, we go by ourselves. If everything checks out, we come back for the animals." The sharp-toothed man cocked his head. "Never had to do that before." "You ever walk through a flame with 40 live cubs?" I raised my brows. "Do you want to get lost in there? Do you want to lose our product in there? If you drop it, you better follow it down. The abyss will meet you with gentler hands than Jackson's." The second man shrugged off his pack. "Faster to do it than to argue." I nodded. "Follow me." Our footsteps rang through the halls. I returned to the cylindrical room. The fire burned at its center. I made sure they were with me, and walked into the heat. I stepped out on a staggering peak. The gale blew me off my center. I windmilled my arms for balance. The flame snapped in the wintry cold. "What the hell?" said the sharp-toothed man. I kicked him over the ledge. His partner swung for my face. I ducked and grabbed his arm, pulling him into his momentum. His howl matched the first man's. I gasped atop the mountain. When their screams stopped short, I returned to the research blocks and brushed off the snow. In the sterile room, the two techies blinked at me. "Miss Porter," one said, "where are Mills and Juarez?" "There was something wrong," I said. "I left them with Jackson. I'm taking the product myself." They glanced at each other. There was no one they could check in with. They were light years from Jackson and the facility. I bent in front of one of the packs, and they helped it onto my back. It extended 2 feet from each shoulder, so heavy it felt like it could drag me through the floor. I took it to the Red Lake. I had no time to waste. I opened a few of the boxes, cubs and puppies, a baby ape with genitals as long as its legs, a unicorn foal. They peeped and whined, stumbling over the carpet. I stuffed them back in their boxes. They would only hurt themselves. I went back for the other 2 packs of boxes and brought them to join the first. The cabin smelled of mammal fur, reptile waste, and jasmine sweated from their pores. I should have stayed. I was trying to have my cake and eat it too. To try to clear myself. If a person can disappear, so can a crime. And remain part of the world unhunted. And I needed to know whether there would be more deliveries down the road. I popped into the brick hearth of the facility. Kinna sent me straight to Jackson. He met me with his knuckles tucked into his pockets, an annoyed smile lining his face. "Where are the others? What is the holdup?" "It's Mills and Juarez," I said. "When we were in between, they strayed too close to the sirens." "Good heavens! What happened to the product?" I shook my head. They had most of it with them. I lost the rest when I tried to pull them back. "Juggling Jehovah!" He steeped his fingers over his nose. "Wait here, will you?" "Of course." I sank into a padded chair. Sweat oozed from my skin. Humidity frizzled my hair. Jackson was gone for 5 minutes. Then 10. He returned with a tanned guide and 2 security guards in shiny white suits. "What's going on?" I said. Jackson smiled tightly. "I have found myself in custody of a liar and a murderer." I stood, knocking back my chair. "They were lost to the sirens. I tried to save them." "By kicking them off a cliff?" He waved a palm screen in my face. From a perspective near my shoulder, I watched the replay of myself kicking and slinging the 2 men off the peak. "You can't tap a ferryman." "We were protecting our investment. Apparently we were wise to do so." He gestured to the soldiers. "Take her to the cage." "Don't," I said. "I'll take you to the product." "What?" He laughed. "So you can kill me too? Strand me in an airless world and laugh as I choke?" "This can be arbitrated. You need someone for your deliveries." "We've had your fallback lined up for 2 years. He'll be here tomorrow. Then you disappear." I woke to laughter. The lab was dark, lit by the green glow of machinery. The chuckling was raspy, weak. "So glad to see you again, Ferryman," the lion said. I pressed my face to the bars of my cage. "You've got to help me." "I certainly do not." Silhouetted, she shuffled to the front of her pen, leering toothlessly. "I think you belong here." "I was trying to help shut this place down." "The same place you built?" Her leonine face pulled into a sneer. She waved a paw to take in the facility. "All the universe to play in, and this is what you do with it?" I didn't know. "Of course not." "I didn't." My voice banged from the walls. "I didn't believe it would be good. But I couldn't imagine it would be this." She considered me through the darkness. "Why are you here?" "They wanted me to bring more of you. Young ones. Instead, I took them away. They're locked up in boxes. They'll starve without me. She chuckled dryly. How convenient. There was a unicorn. A foal. They cultured a real live unicorn. Did it have wings? I stared at the floor. Just a horn. Too bad. I would have liked to see wings. Her cage beeped. Her clawless paws patted on the floor. Her purple eyes loomed up to the bars of my enclosure. Did you just walk through your cage? I'm a talking lion. That doesn't mean I'm made of magic. She waved a chip at the corner of my cage. The lock beeped and clicked open. You want to help? Help! I clambered onto the hard, clean floor. You had a key? Why haven't you escaped? She snorted. Where would I go? I absorbed this, lost in thought. I know someone. Congratulations. I scanned fruitlessly for a clock. Do you want to leave this place? Or do you want to destroy it? You don't leave cancer. Where are the rest of you? The preserve, the sweets, the pens underground. My thoughts took shape. Can you get them out? She shook her shaggy head. My key's only good for these cages. Wait right here. I'll be back in 2 hours. Her purple eyes slitted. You won't be back at all. You've known the wrong ones of us. I prayed the key inside my thumb would still scan me through to the facility's receiving room. It did. The flame was the room's only light. I strode through. Between places, I thought of the lake. How easy it would be to go there. To go to any of my 100 other places. To leave this all behind. But emerged on Wheeler's world instead. His flame was housed inside an empty hangar 200 miles from the farm. The light clicked on, sensing my presence. It was night there, too. Jackson had taken my phone, but Wheeler had a unit installed just inside the door. Wheeler's face appeared on the screen. He looked angry. My head swam as the view rose with him, panning past a rumpled bed and a pair of pale legs jutting from crimson sheets. It's Sue, I said. You think I would have answered if it weren't? I need weapons. He rolled his eyes. That's not really what I do. It's what your private army does. Weapons, and the best door crackers you've got. His anger melted to concern. What are you doing, Sue? Right. Well, isn't that dramatic? Wheeler glanced to the side. You got the flame? Yeah. I'll be there in an hour. The screen blanked. I had nothing to do but wait for the sound of the engines and worry about the future. Wheeler touched down 54 minutes later. He leapt off the skiff with a bloated duffel in one hand and a slim case in the other. These will get you through any doors that aren't state, he said, holding out the case. He followed with the duffel. And these will take care of everything else. I slung the duffel over my shoulder. It nearly buckled me. Thanks. Are you about to be dead? It's gonna look like I am, either way. I'll try to let you know which. I mean, don't go out of your way. I have to go. I hoisted the sack of material up my back. Is this going to explode when I step through the flame? He rubbed his puffy eyes. Good question. Let me fly out of range before you find out. I frowned and let him fly away. I hoisted the duffel above my head, winced, and sprinted into the flame. I didn't explode. I jogged to the lab. The lion coiled from the shadows as abruptly as if she'd walked out of a flame. "That was fast," she rasped. "I can cheat, that's all." She led me to the facility's living toys. Wheeler's Crackers dismantled the lock to the basement in seconds. Row on row of cages lined the walls. The stink of perfume watered my eyes. Human eyes watched me from within furred faces. Some part of me knew all along why they were built the way they were. Denial is easy when it's so easy to run. "We're going to leave now," the lion explained to them. "But there's something you'll want to help us with first." I set to the locks. Most of the creatures had hooves or paws, but a few had human hands, or close enough. A few apes, one wolf, the centaur. I handed them guns, and kept one for myself. "It's your lead from here," I said. "All I know is how to get you out." Upstairs they split into squads. Alarms squealed. Jaguars bounded upstairs to the suites, followed by gorillas with machine guns. The centaur galloped for security, beam rifle in hand, a bear and a wolf pack on his heels. As men screamed from above, the lion led me to Jackson. I cracked his door. He crouched on the far side of his bed, brandishing a lamp. "Do you know how stupid you are?" he hollered, accent crumbling away. "Don't you understand this place is just a finger of their body?" I shrugged. "I helped the gangrene spread. It's time to amputate." "This is hardly civilized." "Oh, please," the lion said. She pounced. Within minutes, the facility was finished. The creatures spread to the jungle and brought their prey colleagues back from the wilds. And when I was the only human left, some, like Kina, should have been spared, but when the dam breaks, there's no stopping the flood, they stampeded down the stairs to the fireplace, wolves and lions and horses and cougars, an ostrich and an allosaur, a griffin and a gargoyle, and I led them through the flame a handful at a time, a sinful Noah leading them to a red lake beneath a green sky. A few months later, I sent Wheeler a message. Wheeler, being Wheeler, found a way to follow me back. The tigers tackled him the second he stepped from the flame. He called out my name, and they dropped back, licking their flanks. "This is insane," he said, dusting himself off. I nodded. "You get used to it." "You get used to unicorns?" "That's just Billy." Wheeler frowned across the red waters. The lake had changed. We'd built houses round much of it, though some preferred caves. Others had left, wandering over the mountains, returning to fish or to swim or to chat with old friends. "You know this can't last. The investors are furious." "You expect your little corner of the universe to be forever?" "There's temporary, and there's temporary." He swiveled his head as 11, the mostly goat, bicycled by. "What on earth were they made for?" "Sport," I said. "Oh." He gritted his teeth. "Let me know if you ever need help moving." I slapped his shoulder in solidarity. I watched 11 wobble down the shore. I have seen so much of the universe, and this expresses it best. A goat that isn't a goat, riding a bicycle, beneath a sky as green as a Kentucky lawn.
Walk the Fire by John Miro. Learn more at servingworlds.com. Theme music, Full On by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com.